He brought thrills to the basketball court. He touched our hearts with his unfailing good humor and that smile. And now Magic Johnson has wrenched our hearts with a tragic announcement today.
Because of the HIV virus that I have attained, I will have to retire from the Lakers.
That day, it seemed as though everybody thought that this was going to be the end.
I thought, oh my God, he's gonna die.
Just like that, showtime was over.
Magic Johnson is coming back to NBA basketball for one game. Magic says he'll play in the February NBA All-Star contest. He says he wants to prove there's no health risk to competitors.
You know, after Magic made his announcement, I think everyone expected to watch him suddenly start to wither away. You know, that's what happened with HIV. There was an incubation period. Now you have AIDS and you start to die. And yet Magic did the opposite.
HIV didn't have him. He had HIV. He controlled it. He ran it.
There's nothing that's wrong with me. You know, I'm just retired. I'm too strong to let things get me down.
He wrung its neck. He wrung HIV's neck and tossed it around the room for the next several years of his life, and everybody else be damned.
He came back in the NBA All-Star Game, was All-Star Game MVP.
I remember watching that game with a big smile on my face, watching the way he played. It was just remarkable to me, you know, and again, this is a man that stood there and told me, he said, I'm gonna beat this thing, and he was proving it again.
And you're thinking, well, okay, maybe this was the curtain call. And then on to the Olympics and Barcelona and Dream Team and gold medal game. I think, you know, everyone had to be a Magic Johnson fan at that point.
Magic Johnson may have lost it during an emotional tribute where his Lakers uniform number was retired, but it seemed like he hadn't lost the feeling to jump back into the NBA game.
I hope that if I do decide to come back, you won't be upset if we did this all over again.
Suddenly, this guy was getting better, stronger, and it's what we're all wondering, what's going on here?
If there's anything that's contagious, then let it be the determination that Magic carried when he was told he had HIV. Let us look at the determination and the will that he had to say, that's not going to stop me from playing the game that I love more than life. That game is my life.
He wasn't going to let the ignorance run him out of the game. He wasn't going to let the stereotype and bias run him out of the game. Only he was going to decide when he quit.
So we go from, I'm retiring because I have HIV, to, okay, well maybe I can play with this.
Since we made the decision to retire together, we got to come up here and make this one. So, since my wife has decided to let me play, I'm coming back to the Lakers, and I'm playing again. Yay.
He was at a stage in his career where he was at the peak. You know, nobody retires when they're at the peak.
When he came back to play again, it showed me that people with HIV could live their life and that others around them were safe.
This is our brother, okay? And we want to play with him. He wants to play with us. And so let's go, let's play, let's practice, let's get back, let's get after, let's do what we've done. Let's go to work and let's get out and let's play some more ball.
You know, God had put me here to play basketball and to do my thing on the court. And so that's where I'm going to do my thing, on that court.
But the rest of the world wasn't ready for it.
Fast forward to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and we're going to play a preseason game there. And then he gets the infamous fingernail scratch, which is a non-bloody wound. You can see like a little scratch, but there's no blood coming out of it. One of our players saw it and sort of freaked out about it and then brought it to my attention.
Not a lot was known about how HIV was spread, it could be contracted. And when you're in a physical sport like basketball, although it's mostly non-contact, there was that fear that there could be blood exchange on a court.
So now there's a timeout on the court, and I tell one of the officials, you know, that I might need a little bit more time than the regular 2-minute timeout because Magic's got a scratch, and we have a protocol. And I got these gloves in my pocket, and I'm looking at the wound, and all of a sudden I look up, and there's a camera right on me, and a bunch of eyeballs. 2 of everybody's eyeballs on the team are watching what I'm doing with this fingernail scratch. And I said to myself, if I put these gloves on, it's gonna send a mixed message, not just my teammates, it's gonna send a mixed message to the world. Because I'm telling them, you can't get it this way. So if I can't get it, then why are you putting gloves on?
Gary, was making a point that he wasn't worried one bit.
It wouldn't have been a big deal, except what I saw in everybody's eyes, Magic saw. And I believe that he felt that he was hurting the game that he loved. And he wasn't willing to do that. And so then he retired again.
It looks like subtle and not so subtle pressure from his fellow pro basketball players has forced Magic Johnson to call it quits again.
When Magic Johnson said he had HIV, it was like putting a scarlet letter on his jersey. People cried, people were stunned, people felt terrible, but people turned on him.
Whenever you get a new disease, there is always stigma associated with it, like it's somebody's fault, or there's something wrong with the people who've gotten the disease. That was no exception with HIV.
I think players in the NBA felt a little bit of that uneasiness. It just shows the naivety at that time about this disease.
When he came back, some players, and we know the history, didn't want him there. I mean, when you play in the NBA, you're in close physical contact. You're sweating, you're breathing on people. I mean, not unlike fears over the spread of COVID.
They were worried for themselves, they were worried for their families. Karl Malone was outspoken about it.
You have the virus, I think it's definitely no place to be on the basketball court.
I'm hurt. You're hurt inside, not at him, at the fact that I won't get a chance to play.
We knew about Karl and other people, but what Magic didn't know is that we had several of his teammates coming to me and saying, GV, are you sure we can't get this? Okay, because they play against them a few times a year. I got to practice with this guy every day. Are you sure we're okay?
I used to wonder, what is it like now for him, for his own teammates, to say, I don't think it's right for you to play with us. I don't think it's right that we share the same locker room. What that had to do to him, that's enough to take any good man down, but it didn't.
Basketball, is such a demanding sport on your body. And so my concern was only about him being able to live a good, long, prosperous life as long as possible. And I thought if he puts too much strain on his body, it could obviously deteriorate his body a little bit faster. So I had concerns about that. I had no concerns about playing with him.
People didn't want to shake his hand, didn't want to be close by, certainly didn't want to play the game with him. Outside of the game of basketball even, Magic Johnson, some of the restaurants he frequented, suddenly he was not welcome. Friends told him point blank that they just did not want to be around him.
Magic had a number of levels of stigma that he had to fight and bigotry and discrimination. One, because he was African American. Two, because he had the guts to come out on a national platform and say, hey, I'm a basketball star and I have HIV. And then the other thing is within his own community, the questions about him being gay or bisexual, which are totally irrelevant.
People weren't as tolerant as they are today. They're not as understanding as they are today. The first thing people said was, oh, Magic's gay. That's a bad thing, which was insane. The second thing they said was, oh my God, Magic's gay. He got what was coming to him. A terrible thing.
The speculation began. How did he get it? Who did he get it from? Is he gay? Is he straight? Those were all rumors that were just flying around the league and flying around our country.
No way that Magic Johnson can be bisexual or gay and not everybody know it.
And it was terrible, particularly for the gay population of young gay men, because they were already a somewhat disenfranchised group with prejudice against them. The stigma associated with it was compounding the stigma associated with being an injection drug user, the stigma associated with being a commercial sex worker. All of that compounded.
But it was very scary. People were dying, people were getting sick, and yet many of our people that were HIV positive back then, or who contracted full-blown AIDS, hid their status from their family because they didn't want to get thrown out of the house. And so it was scary and it was lonely.
There's just so many components and layers to HIV that are very fear-driven. At that point, people were afraid, and were the most afraid of what we don't understand.
Has any player come out since then, since that moment, and said they had HIV? No. And you can't tell me players haven't gotten sick. You cannot tell me players aren't infected.
I'm positive there's HIV positive people in the NBA. There's no doubt in my mind. But why would they tell you?
People still worry the reaction would be the same in the sports world. That just shows how amazing it is that Magic said something. Because nobody's followed him. Nobody's said anything since.
So to bring this disease into the light and to talk about it, to talk about the myths, the knowledge, the progress that was being made, that was just unbelievably powerful and really transformative in terms of dealing with the disease.
What's your name? Nice to meet you.
He didn't hide it, and he shared this information. But because of Magic Johnson, many people are alive today because he believed that you could fight it, and he was going to dedicate his life to it. And he has shown the world with medication, with attention, that you could save lives despite that pandemic.
Well, I think today HIV/AIDS is just considered a condition. It's not considered a death sentence. It's something that you can live with, like somebody who has diabetes or heart condition.
I take 2 pills a day. That's it. I take 2 pills a day, and they are smaller than an Aleve. I mean, I have friends that take more pills in just Aleve on a Saturday morning to take care of their hangover than I have to take to be healthy living with HIV. That's the perspective and the paradigm shift that we're on the cusp of.
We now have more user-friendly therapies. You can prevent HIV acquisition 99% of the time. So it was really, over the years, things got better and better and better and better. So the only real last holy grail that still has not been accomplished yet is the development of a safe and effective vaccine. But we're not giving up on that.
Today we look at this fight against HIV, and it's all about awareness, acceptance, and education.
We have experienced 95% decline in mother-to-child transmission in the US, and globally since 2000, we've reduced it significantly worldwide. That doesn't change the fact that still HIV and AIDS in sub-Saharan Africa is a leading cause of mortality in young people. Every single week, close to 2,000 people die from HIV. 400 babies are born HIV positive almost every single day.
I am here because my son and I may not survive 4 more years of leaders who say they care, but do nothing.
If we do a full court press on this, I believe we can dramatically diminish the infections now. We have about 38,000 infections each year in the United States. I think we can get it way down to somewhere around 2,000 to 3,000 a year.
There are a lot more things in this world to be afraid of than HIV right now. So educate yourselves, educate your community, use the tools at your fingertips to show people that you are not afraid.
While we have made significant progress, we have to keep going and we have to keep funding. I always say that when you're dealing with a pandemic, you can't do it on the cheap. You've got to put the resources in that are necessary to deal with the problem.
These last 30 years have taken us to a point where we now see a world where we could experience a generation free of HIV and AIDS. And Magic, my mother, so many others started that fight. And it's our job right now to finish it.
NBA players don't really get the chance to get into the community or any sports figure as much as they should, and this gives me a chance to get in the community, show them that, hey, I was once there with them as far as being one of them, sitting in a clinic myself, had a lot of dreams and goals, and here I am now. I want to give back to them.
When the early 1990s, after it became clear he wasn't going to be able to come back and play basketball on any full-time basis, he really put his mind to doing community economic development.
He emerged as a very astute business person who not only gave back to the community, but helped people to understand that they could be entrepreneurs.
He was able to move way beyond the basketball court and to be a superstar in life, in the world, in philanthropy, in business, in real estate. He went into Crenshaw when it was still considered a blighted neighborhood, and he invested in it.
Welcome to the first Magic Johnson Theater.
He went into the inner cities, and he bought movie theaters, and he bought grocery stores, and he put his name on them in places nobody would ever go from outside those communities. That's where he made his mark as a businessman.
Started off with coffee shops and TGI Fridays in the Ladera Center, and then went on to build the iconic Magic Johnson theaters, which got replicated all over the United States. When you went into our Starbucks for the Magic Johnson built, you know, there was Sakatumi cake and, you know, pecan pie and bean pie and all the things that we would want. When you went to Magic Johnson theaters, our movies were the big movies. When you went to the snack bar, they had our snacks.
Who is this beautiful lady here? Hi.
His contribution was to bring things to the community, but also to show that you don't have to give this community short shrift.
This was specially made for you. He was a student of business, and he didn't let HIV/AIDS stop his dream. He said, I'm going to continue to do what I had planned.
I wrote, if you thought you had a death sentence, you're going to want to live every moment like it was your last. And that's what he did. And that leads to the talk shows, to the front office work, all-star games, sidelines. He was doing everything but refereeing.
Who would have ever thought when Magic Johnson walked off the podium that day that he would go on, you know, to not only play ball, but to become this huge businessman, to be involved with the Dodgers and the Lakers, and to own the vast amount of property that he does all over Southern California.
The fact that one can live so much of life is just, it gives you hope, it gives you excitement to think that, gosh, what am I going to do next? What might I be able to do? And the fact that he's done so much is really, truly inspiring.
Whether it was basketball or creating a platform for HIV positive people or business, his goal is to be the best.
Numero uno, the greatest point guard that's ever lived, and one of the greatest men of example that's ever lived.
He used his abilities. He used his basketball abilities to show people you can live with this, you can thrive with this.
In terms of one person that created a platform for HIV positive people, I can't think of there's anybody else that was better at it than him.
He took that role on day one. During the announcement, he said he would be an advocate for the prevention of HIV and safe sex, and he was and still is an incredible voice in that fight.
Here's a guy that took a death sentence and turned it into a lifeline for hundreds of thousands of people by using that star power to raise money for treatment and for education on AIDS and HIV.
He's been able to change so many lives, and I think, you know, when it's all said and done, hopefully most people remember him for what he did off the court as well as what he was able to do on the court.
We're not put here just to be successful basketball players or coaches. That if you don't give back to the community, if you don't help other people who are down and give them sort of a leg up, then I don't think you're doing what you need to do in your life. You got to be part of this whole world, this society, and he's right in the center of that universe.
He has the tenacity of an athlete, the charisma of a movie star, but the touch of a good preacher or politician.
He's like the angel of Los Angeles.
He served mankind. He stepped up to serve mankind.
He's a phenomenon. I think what we have to learn from Magic is never give up. I don't care what you're facing. I don't care how the public's on you. I don't care how your teammates on you, or your family, or your friends. Never give up.
He's always provided hope.
He gave hope to the hopeless. He gave voice to the voiceless.
He changed the world.
I'm gonna go on, I'm gonna beat it, and I'm gonna have fun. Okay, so thank you again, and I'll see you soon.
He said, I'm going to be around, I'm going to live a long life, and you're just shaking your head thinking, no, you're not. This is a death sentence. And then he did exactly what he said he was going to do. He kept on living. He was a prophet back then, and I'm so glad he was.
He said to me, when God gave me this disease, he gave it to the right person. I'm going to do something really good with this. I don't want you to worry about me.
He was the epitome of optimism, and his optimism was justified because in reality, it did happen. Drugs came along, allowing him to lead a normal life and allowing literally millions of people living with HIV to lead a normal life.
He showed people that he had hope and that he believed that a struggle, the fight, the interest, the education could lead to saving lives.
He willed himself to have a good life. And then once he got there, he took people with him.
Who would have thought that life would not only go on for him, it would flourish for him. He ended up an eternal champion.
This is not a sad day, this is a happy day. It was sad November 7th, a long time ago. It was happy when I was 19 years old and I got drafted by the Lakers, and it's happy now that I'm ending it here in Los Angeles with the Lakers. I'm very happy.